Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to fundamentally flip absolutely everything you thought you knew about money by diving into some truly mind-bending history and economics. Look, if you've ever felt like the financial system is a bit of a maze, well, that confusion isn't an accident. We're going to use our time today as a map to uncover the hidden mechanics of money, unlearning all the old myths, and revealing how the system actually operates.
So what is money, really? Well, to even begin to answer that, we have to travel back to the tiny Pacific island of Yap in 1903. An American doctor named William Furness visited this island, and the local currency he discovered there is going to make you completely question the very nature of value.
Section 1. The Illusion of Manu. We're starting our journey right here, looking at the physical illusion of money. Get this, the Yapese people used these massive 4-ton solid limestone discs as currency. We're talking stones so heavy they were the weight of a literal elephant. You couldn't move them. They just sat by the road. Yet the locals never moved these heavy stones to trade them. They just collectively agreed on who owned them. And here's the craziest part. Once, a family was transporting a huge stone by canoe and it famously sank to the bottom of the sea. But the entire island agreed the stone still existed and still belonged to that family. It kept circulating as money. The physical stone was never the point. The agreement was.
And this perfectly illustrates something that two rival economic heavyweights, John Maynard Keynes and Milton Friedman, both realized. These two disagreed on almost everything in their careers, but when they read about Yap Island, they both came to the exact same shocking conclusion. These people understand money better than we do. Ultimately, money is nothing more than a shared human agreement about value.
Part 2. The Myth of Barter. Okay, so if money is just an agreement, we really need to rethink how it all started. You've definitely heard the textbook story. First humans bartered, like I'll trade you my fish for your bread, and then we invented money to make things easier. Back in 1776, economist Adam Smith wrote this all down. But he wasn't describing actual history, he was just making a logical guess. The truth is, barter absolutely did not create money. Cambridge anthropologist Caroline Humphreys searched for evidence of original barter economies and found absolutely zero. People only resorted to bartering in pure emergencies, like in 1990s Russia or 2002 Argentina, when their actual money systems had completely collapsed. Barter was the emergency backup plan, definitely not the beginning.
Let's actually look at the historical timeline here. It shows us that for thousands of years, ancient civilizations basically ran entirely on recorded promises and debt. The oldest writing ever discovered from Mesopotamia, over 5,000 years ago, is just debt records scratched into clay tablets, merchants just writing down what people owed them. The very first physical coins didn't even show up in Lydia until 2,700 years later. Think about that. For over 2 millennia, humans built cities and ran entire civilizations long before the first coin was ever minted. The promise came first.
To really grasp the danger of this system, try thinking of money as a measuring tool, like a ruler. A minute is always exactly 60 seconds anywhere in the world, right? Nobody can change it because it exists in nature. But money's just a human agreement. And human agreements can be silently changed right behind your back. For thousands of years, we tied money to gold or silver just to keep that ruler honest. But when we moved to paper, you suddenly found yourself trusting a measuring tool held by the exact same people who directly benefit from shrinking it. Section 3. The goldsmiths' secret. Now, the invention of paper money was actually meant to be this brilliant, practical fix. About 1,000 years ago, China's Song dynasty invented paper money to solve a very real problem. Their iron coins were heavy, low in value, and super dangerous to transport. So merchants just started leaving iron with trusted shops and traded the paper receipts instead. It was genius. But then the government stepped in, made the paper money official, they called it jiaozi, and eventually printed way too much of it to fund their expensive wars. They printed more and more, completely destroying trust in that shrinking ruler, and ironically, forcing people right back to the heavy iron they had tried to escape in the first place. Fast forward a few centuries, and a 17th century London goldsmith pulls off a similar, but honestly way more deceptive trick. People stored their gold in his highly secure vaults for a fee, and they traded his paper receipts. But lying awake one night, the goldsmith realized that only about 10% of people ever came to collect their physical golds at any one time. So what did he do? He started secretly printing and lending out fake receipts for gold he didn't even own. He literally charged interest on these fake receipts. His depositors carried all the risk of a bank run while he kept all the reward, literally creating money out of thin air. Now, you'd think this absolute fraud would be punished when it was exposed, right? Actually, no.
a desperate King William III totally institutionalized it. He needed massive amounts of money for his wars, so in 1694, he founded the Bank of England. He literally put a crown on the goldsmiths' trick, giving a group of merchants a license to issue unbacked paper money, backed only by the king's promise to repay. And boom, the mother of all central banks was born. Every central bank and private bank you know today basically runs on this exact same system the goldsmiths invented. Which brings us to Section 4, the end of gold. Even as paper money completely took over, the world still tried really hard to keep a physical anchor, to stop endless printing. Towards the end of World War II, in 1944, the Western world wanted honest money again, so they agreed on one massive rule: tie every currency to the US dollar, and strictly tie the dollar to gold at a fixed $35 for 1 ounce. For a while, this fixed anchor worked beautifully to rebuild Europe. But underneath it all, America was quietly printing extra dollars to fund wars and domestic programs. The dollars were piling up, but the gold in the vault just didn't match the paper anymore. And eventually, the whole thing just broke. Countries slowly realized the math did not add up. When nations like France called the bluff and demanded their actual physical gold back, the US vaults started emptying fast. So on a Sunday evening in August 1971, President Nixon goes on national TV and completely severs the dollar's final tie to physical reality, abruptly ending its convertibility to gold. Practically overnight, every currency in the world became just paper, backed by absolutely nothing but trust. The fallout from this was absolutely devastating for the value of our money. If you happen to have a crisp $100 bill in your pocket on the night of that 1971 broadcast, that exact same physical note has lost a staggering 92% of its purchasing power today. It will only buy you about $8 worth of things compared to back then. The physical number printed on the note stayed exactly the same, but the ruler was massively silently shrunk. Section 5. The modern debt machine. So here we are in our current reality. You probably picture money as the physical cash sitting in your wallet, but today, 97% of all money isn't physical cash at all. Zero. It is purely digital. It exists solely as numbers on bank computer screens, and it is created largely by private banks, not the government or the central bank. Okay, let's dive into how money is actually born today, because it's wild. Private banks do not actually lend out other people's savings like middlemen. That's a total myth. The exact second you walk into a bank and sign a contract for, say, a $10,000 loan, your signature allows the bank to record your promise as an asset. And in that very second, they just type $10,000 into your account straight from thin air. They didn't move money from someone else's savings account. Your signature created entirely new money. But make no mistake, they still collect very real interest on it. But here is the terrifying mathematical trap in all of this. You borrow 10 grand, but with interest, you owe the bank 11 grand. So where does that extra $1,000 come from? Well, it was never actually created in the system. The only way you can find that extra $1,000 to pay off your debt is if someone else borrows money first, meaning the entire global economy basically requires a constant stream of people taking on new, endless debt forever just to avoid total systemic collapse. And you really have to notice the language they use to describe this. Central banks worldwide target a 2% annual inflation rate, and they very pleasantly call it price stability. Now, 2% sounds completely harmless, right? But compound that over a lifetime, and it intentionally cuts the value of an everyday citizen's savings roughly in half every 35 years. The ruler is being systematically shortened on purpose.
So we gotta ask, who actually benefits from this shortened ruler? Well, inflation absolutely hammers the everyday saver who's holding on to a weakening currency. But it is a massive gift to the borrower. You borrow with strong currency and pay it back later with much weaker currency. And who is the single biggest borrower on planet Earth? Our governments. Inflation is secretly a massive, quiet wealth transfer from everyday savers directly to heavily indebted governments, slowly inflating their unpayable debts away over decades. For years, all those dense, confusing economics textbooks have been hiding a remarkably simple truth. The silent shrinking of your money's value, it isn't an accident. It's not a mathematical error or a glitch. It is entirely by design. The saver pays, the borrower benefits. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. As we wrap up this explainer, we've traveled from giant limestone stones on Yop Island to digital money literally created from thin air with a keystroke. We've uncovered that money is, ultimately, just an agreement, a ruler we use to measure value.
So I'm going to leave you with one final thought to ponder the very next time you check your bank balance. If the ruler keeps shrinking, who is really measuring your wealth?